The courtroom fell silent when the judge narrowed his eyes at Caroline's chest. "Remove that cross," he ordered coldly. "You are in a court of law, not a church." The room gasped. But Caroline? She did not flinch. She stood there, calm, steady, eyes locked with his. No one expected what she would do next. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe for powerful, real-life stories that shake the system. What the judge did not know, what the courtroom did not see coming, was that the woman he just humiliated was no ordinary citizen. Behind that soft smile and silent defiance was a mind trained in law and a history that would soon turn this trial upside down. The judge thought he was asserting power, but he had just woken a storm dressed in grace. The judge slammed his gavel. "This is a violation of courtroom decorum," he barked. "You will be fined $500 for contempt." The words hung heavy in the air, like a slap meant to silence. Some people in the courtroom smirked, satisfied. Others looked uncomfortable. But Caroline's face did not change. She reached into her purse, not to remove the cross, but to pull out a leather-bound notebook. Calmly, without saying a word, she flipped it open. Her fingers moved with precision, writing something down. The judge narrowed his eyes. "Are you mocking this court?" he asked. Caroline finally spoke. "I am noting the violation of my constitutional rights, just for the record." The courtroom froze. Whispers filled the gallery. Even the clerk raised an eyebrow. The judge scoffed. "And who do you think you are? Some kind of legal expert?" Caroline looked up, her voice steady. "No, Your Honor. I am a former constitutional attorney. I know exactly what this courtroom is doing and what it should not be doing." The moment she said that, the mood in the courtroom changed. People who had been watching casually now leaned in. A few even pulled out their phones, sensing something rare was unfolding. The judge shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but tried to recover his authority. "Well, then perhaps you should know better than to bring personal symbols into this courtroom." Caroline tilted her head slightly. "With all due respect, Your Honor, the First Amendment protects my right to religious expression. That includes wearing a cross. There is no law, federal or state, that prohibits it in a courtroom unless it is causing disruption. And I assure you, it is not the cross that is causing a scene here." The judge opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked to the bailiff, who stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do. The murmurs in the room grew louder. A reporter near the back typed furiously, already imagining the headline. And still Caroline stood calm, her cross shining softly under the courtroom lights. A woman in the gallery whispered, "Who is she?" Another answered, "I think she is some kind of lawyer." But they were both wrong, and about to find out just how wrong. Caroline slowly stepped forward, now standing confidently before the entire courtroom. "Since this court has chosen to fine me over a cross," she said, "let us address the law properly." She then reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, thick, detailed, and filled with case law references. Her voice was steady. "Your Honor, I have here 7 precedent cases where religious symbols, including crosses, were protected under the Constitution. Would you like me to cite them one by one?" The judge looked stunned. You brought case law?" "Yes," she said calmly. "And I can also provide a copy to your clerk if needed." The courtroom was silent now, the kind of silence that only falls when everyone realizes the power has shifted. The judge's hands gripped the bench. He was no longer in control. And Caroline? She was just getting started. The judge leaned back, visibly rattled. "That will not be necessary," he muttered, trying to regain his composure. But Caroline was not finished, not even close. She took a slow breath, then continued. "Your Honor, this courtroom stands on the foundation of equal protection and religious freedom. You chose to fine me because of a cross, but this," she lifted the necklace gently, "is not just jewelry. It is my identity, my belief, and my right." Gasps rippled through the room. One of the reporters from a national legal blog started scribbling rapidly. The moment had gone viral in real time, captured on phones, whispered through group chats, already hitting headlines. The judge cleared his throat. "You are out of line." Caroline smiled politely. "With all due respect, Your Honor, the line was already crossed. Not by me, but by the bench. The bailiff looked unsure whether to intervene. The jury, the spectators, even the opposing attorney, everyone now had their eyes on Karoline. What began as a silent protest had become a powerful public statement, and the judge who tried to silence her, he was now facing the kind of spotlight even a robe could not protect him from. Karoline walked back to her seat, calm but blazing with quiet strength. The judge tried to continue with the hearing, but his voice trembled slightly, his authority shaken in front of a packed courtroom. The next witness was called, but no one was really listening. All eyes were still on Karoline. Even the jury kept glancing at her with curiosity and, more surprisingly, admiration. She had gone from being the one judged to the one defining justice. During recess, a young clerk nervously approached her. "Miss Leavitt," he said softly, "I just wanted to say, I have never seen anyone do what you just did." Karoline gave a small, gracious nod. "Sometimes," she replied, "you do not fight back by yelling. You fight back by standing." Meanwhile, inside the judge's chambers, panic was setting in. His assistant showed him a live stream clip circulating online. Judge fines woman for wearing a cross, but she turns out to be a legal powerhouse. It had already racked up 2 million views, but the worst was yet to come. Karoline had filed a formal complaint, and civil rights attorneys had taken notice. What the judge thought would be a quiet punishment for a woman he assumed was naive was now spiraling into national outrage. By the next morning, Karoline's name was trending across the country. Talk shows, podcasts, and news anchors were all replaying that one moment. The moment she calmly quoted the Constitution while wearing the very cross the judge tried to shame. But Karoline had no interest in fame. She was on a mission. She walked into the courthouse that day not just for her own case, but armed with a new purpose. A coalition of civil rights lawyers had joined her, and behind her, dozens of people stood in silent support, each wearing a cross, a star, or another symbol of faith. The courtroom had become a symbol itself. When the judge entered, he was visibly different. Gone was the smug confidence. In its place, a man realizing the walls were closing in. Karoline stood not to argue, but to present hard evidence. Files proving a pattern of biased rulings, targeting women and minorities over the past 5 years. Each document she laid down was like a hammer to the judge's gavel. No noise, no drama, just facts, cold and undeniable. The courtroom, once dismissive of her presence, now sat in stunned silence. The judge tried to interrupt. "Miss Leavitt, I do not see how—" Karoline's voice sliced through his words. "You will see, Your Honor, because the court of public opinion is already watching, and the truth does not care about titles." The judge's face tightened. His hands trembled as he reached for his water glass. But it was too late. The courtroom clerk whispered something to the bailiff, who nodded and quietly exited. Moments later, 2 federal agents entered through the side door. The judge's eyes darted to them, then to Karoline. His voice cracked. "This is absurd. I demand this hearing be adjourned." Karoline took a slow step forward, her tone calm but laced with steel. "You may demand whatever you want, Your Honor, but justice has its own schedule." The agents moved forward. One unfolded a document. "Judge Alan Briggs, you are under investigation for repeated civil rights violations, judicial misconduct, and obstruction of justice. You are hereby ordered to step down pending a formal inquiry." The entire courtroom gasped. The same man who had tried to fine Karoline for wearing a cross now stood powerless before her. And as he was escorted out, no robe, no authority, Karoline remained still. No smugness, no celebration, just quiet resolve. Outside the courthouse, reporters flooded her, cameras flashing. "Karoline, how do you feel?" She looked at the crowd, then up at the sky. "Faith is not something to be fined. It is something to be fought for." The crowd erupted into applause, not for a celebrity, but for a citizen who had used her mind, her rights, and her courage to expose what many were too afraid to confront. And in that moment, Karoline Leavitt was no longer just a legal genius. She was a symbol of silent strength, proof that dignity could not be silenced, and truth, no matter how buried, always finds its way to the surface.